It's about being the champion. It's about showing dominance. New York has been the best team in the league since day one of the Overwatch League. They have taken 2 stage titles. Now, stage 3 champions yet again.
With the inaugural season of the Overwatch League, we've seen numerous teams fail to adapt to the present level of competition, whilst others have soared echelons above the rest. Namely, NYXL and their outclassing of all opposition raises the question as to whether the end of season playoffs will actually be all too competitive. Having clinched the number 1 seed well in advance of the conclusion of the regular season, NYXL solidified themselves as by and large the best team in the league. As a result of their sheer dominance, wins and losses throughout the remaining weeks of the 4th stage quite literally mean nothing outside of stage playoff contention, and let's be real, they would more or less have to go out of their way to actually slip out of the top 4. With that in mind, NYXL has every reason in the world to take their foot off the gas a little and preserve its players for the real end of season test. With ample time to focus on what's truly important, more time than any other team in the league who all remain in the midst of a relentless schedule, the lack of a serious threat to NYXL raises concern as to whether the inaugural season will end on a somewhat lackluster note. Firstly, a major factor to consider is that NYXL has already ensured that they see a bye week throughout the first round of the playoffs. Now typically, this might not even sound like that big of a deal, but in competitive Overwatch, timing is everything. NYXL has a huge opportunity to simply sit back throughout the time that they earned, observe the competition of the first week, and continue to prepare and plan accordingly. Now the regular season sees each and every team competing twice a week in a single best of 5 matchup. In contrast, the playoffs, which span the better part of July, sees teams competing in a maximum of 3 separate matches, all of which are determined in best of 3 formats. So for example, a team that places 5th in the overall standings will first compete against the 4th seeded team. To advance, a team needs to win 2 full best of 5 series across a wide assortment of maps. For NYXL and the top team out of the Pacific Division, almost certainly the LA Valiant at this point in time, they skip the first round of competition, meaning that they only have to prepare for 2 matches in the span of nearly a month. That is an absolutely massive benefit. Having acclimated to the rigorous OWL schedule, preparing for 2 teams each and every week, it cannot be overstated just how much of a luxury it is going to be for these winning teams. To put it into relatable terms, they just have a significantly larger time bank in which to work with. That added time allows for coaching staff to devise even more strategies, assess more holes in the opposition, and perhaps most significantly, adapt more efficiently to the much larger map pool in play. At the conclusion of the 4th and final stage on the 17th of June, the top 6 teams will have roughly 4 weeks to prepare for not only a different meta involving the far more powerful Hanzo, but also a different selection of maps. And whilst no details have been confirmed as to which particular maps we'll see, given the length of each matchup, you have to assume that at least 15 of the 18 maps in Overwatch will be in rotation. That is a lot to prepare for, even for the most efficient and organized coaching staff in the league. But both NYXL and the top Pacific team will have even more time in which to hone their strategies across each of the battlegrounds for both of their potential opponents. That alone serves to benefit the 2 top seeded teams a great deal, as the opposition they meet in the semi-finals may have just emerged days prior from a potentially grueling 15 map affair in the most extreme case scenario. If NYXL are able to drop only 4 matches throughout the entirety of the regular season, where matches just keep coming and coming, imagine what they're capable of when given weeks to prepare. Now depending on your perspective, that additional time could lead to an extraordinarily one-sided matchup when the playoffs reach the Barclays Center on the 27th of July. But if you're more of a glass half full kind of person, it would pay not to forget that the top Pacific team also benefits greatly from that additional time. Whilst on one hand, we haven't seen what NYXL is capable of under these conditions, we also haven't seen quite what is capable when a team is given ample time to prepare for the New York roster. Sure, the LA Valiant failed to even so much as take a single map from NYXL in the Stage 3 playoffs, but do keep in mind that they essentially came into those playoffs after a week from hell, wherein they went to map 5 against the dominant Stage 3 Boston Uprising, as well as another 5 map series against the Philadelphia Fusion just a day prior. I for one could not be more excited to see how the level of competition rises when each team knows their opponents well ahead of time, knows that they only have to focus on a handful of matches, and has the benefit of having an abundance of time to prepare. Speaking of time though, another factor to consider in favour of NYXL is that their players have been able to take things easy of late. Whilst they are still tallying up wins in the 4th and final stage, they're the only roster to have clinched a season playoff spot well in advance. Every single match after their 4-0 triumph over the Seoul Dynasty on the 26th of May has been entirely inconsequential. Whilst they are almost a shoo-in for the stage playoffs anyways, that $100,000 first place prize pales in comparison to the $1 million prize awarded to the overall season playoff victors. Considering just how successful NYXL has been to this point, why burn all your players out now and have them exert their energy in this final phase of regular season competition, when the most important period is just around the corner? The period where you truly want your players to peak, where you want to devote everything in search of that win. We saw rather blatantly in one of their most recent matches against the LA Valiant that they weren't putting their best foot forward at all times, and they're quite right to do so. As the rest of the competition toughs out the last few weeks, battling neck and neck for the playoff spots, NYXL has been able to take their foot off of the gas a little, ease up the workload on their players and coaching staff alike, and perhaps even devote their efforts elsewhere. They could very well already be designating time to practicing certain compositions for playoff matches, preparing strategies for maps we haven't seen since the first stage, and so on and so forth. Just getting a leg up on the competition wherever they can. That is a very likely possibility, and once again, lends credence to the notion that NYXL are going to be far ahead of the curve come the playoffs. Overwatch at the very highest level, as we all know, is not just about individual talent. It's about outsmarting the opposition, devising plans that counter favourable strategies of the enemy. With more time on their hands in which to do so, NYXL are able to alleviate some of the pressure that is sure to accompany the grandest stage in Overwatch to date when they seat themselves in the Barclays Center in front of nearly 20,000 New York fans. Ultimately, the playoffs should be a period of time where the very best in the world duke it out. And if one team is simply that much better than the rest, is it really a bad thing? Would it really have that much of a negative effect on the viewing experience for those watching at home? Well, perhaps if you're an avid fan of any other team in the league, and certainly if you're of the mindset that the outcome is already a foregone conclusion, but if you're a fan of Overwatch and esports in general, you should be excited to watch perfectionists at work if that so be the case. If NYXL failed to drop even a single map throughout all of July, is that really such a bad thing? Personally, I'm of a similar mindset to Monty in that I appreciate watching the very best demonstrate their excellence. A complete shutout wouldn't bore me. The fact that they're so successful against any and all opposition is purely a testament to their dedication. They're that far ahead of the competition for a very good reason, but at the same time, I can completely understand wanting a competitive, enthralling playoff scenario to get the worldwide audience invested and tell a great story. But what are your thoughts on the matter though? Let me know down in the comments below, but as always, thanks for tuning in, I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next one.